I'm Giovanni Lago from Next Best Picture, and today I am joined by the director and writer of Rebuilding, Max Walker-Silverman, and its star, Josh O'Connor. Thank you guys for joining me today.
I thought you were about to say that I'm the writer.
No.
I'm writer. No. Hi, hey. Walter-Silverman.
Rebuilding touched me in a way because I grew up in Florida. So I know plenty of people that seeing their homes or businesses altered by natural disasters and how they've had to recover from those situations. Rebuilding was born out of an experience from your own life with your grandmother. I'm curious, this could have been a far more bitter display of emotions, but that's not what the film is at all. It's far more optimistic. I'm curious as to how you're looking life after a tragedy like this and turning it into art. Was it always through this perspective? Did you find it naturally, organically shifting to this mode?
Yeah, I mean, I think what makes art interesting is like the things you can do as choices that you couldn't if you were doing journalism,
Mm-hmm.
or as a work of documentary. Those forms are critical and powerful because they're like touching reality, and art is something different, or I think should be something different. And I think there's like the possibility and responsibility even to not just show things how they are, but kind of as they could be. And there's like an expression of hope to it that I think you can bring to a story, to a world, even a tough one, even tough characters, even a tough place, that's brushed with like some colors of hope. So yes, that to me is the whole point of art.
And also there's so many emotions at play. I think, Josh, when you're playing a character like Dusty, there's grief over what was lost. There's a stagnation that's present over life feeling halted. I think there's this sadness there that he's also trying to bury so he can put forth his responsibilities as a father. I'm curious, as a performer, when you get a project like this, are you elated at how appealing that there are so many layers to a character like this? Do you find it daring in a way because there's a certain balance you have to strike, especially with a very patiently tender way Max tells his stories?
Yeah, I mean, with this particular film, I'd seen Max's previous film, and so that there was a kind of sensibility that I could see on screen that drew me in. And then, very often it's not a case of you're looking to explore a particular theme or an emotion or an experience. It's often that it sort of, you read something and it's kind of undiscovered why you're drawn to it. And actually in the making of a film, or in the making or creating of a character, it sort of reveals itself why you were drawn. So, in this, for me, in making Rebuilding, it was, I would say, the discovery of the kind of isolation and community and the benefits of community was the big one for me, which is obviously present in the script. But you don't necessarily, as a performer, you don't necessarily know what's going to ring true to yourself. What you're going to take away from an experience of making a film that you wouldn't otherwise with another character or in another project.
It's also a nice counterbalance because also this year you were in The Mastermind and you play a father in that film, all so much more selfishly incompetent and bumbling around. And here, I think Dusty, there's always a consistent effort. There's always a care. I'm curious, for the two of you, what was it like building that dynamic along with Lily, who's amazing, and taking that from the page to the screen?
Well, yeah, I mean, you kind of said it beautifully, actually, that Dusty's on a kind of, there is this grief for the landscape, which kind of, I think at the beginning of the film is initially what Dusty's trying to kind of grapple with. And then obviously the kind of the practical side of that, like how does he support himself and his daughter, and what does his life look like without this? But what creeps in and what I discover as the film goes on is this relationship with his daughter, and how Callie Rose has sort of been on the periphery, not necessarily as a kind of conscious choice, but just as a necessity. So a lot of Max and I's conversations just generally about Dusty, and trying to sort of, in a very different way to something like Mastermind, where, Dusty, there's a kind of, at times I do find him kind of frustrating that he can't see what he has. But you have to be able to understand Dusty and understand where that's come from. And as you rightly said, these confused emotions of grief and trying to grapple with hope and trying to see the benefit of community and family. What do you think? Yeah,
I mean, I'm just remembering, as you know, as far as like the process of that went, and for you guys as actors, like, I mean, you're like a sweet man, you know, and Lily, who's playing that kid, is this really sweet kid, like, and then this is really true of all the cast, I think, and I mean, a lot of credit goes to you, honestly, but of understanding, and like, I think Josh just knew that as a human, but also as a professional, you know, like, to make people comfortable on set, to make people comfortable working with you. You were like such a kind friend to Lily very, very quickly, that it sort of put everyone at ease, and I think like allowed all these actors like to slip into the strange, you know, work of artifice that is their job.
Well then, in that case, I would also argue that Max also creates an environment. You know, I've never had such a profoundly close experience with a crew and cast as I did with Rebuilding, and that's down to Max. But then the other thing I would also add to that is that this balance that Max strikes so beautifully and seamlessly of professional actors and then the non-professional locally cast actors in the movie, who I think do play a part in that sense of we're all in it together. And do you know what I mean? I think that actually has a really like big impact on those relationships.
There is something very kind of sacred that comes out of like such an unusual mix of people, and like there is something true that a farmer can bring to a scene about a farmer, and I also believe very deeply that there's something true that like a great actor can bring to a character, that maybe the accent is slightly different, but like there's something human that takes like real craft and skill to dig out, especially for a character like Dusty, who's so stripped of things, you know, like you're playing a character with so little dialogue, with so little physicality, with so little to do. Like it actually takes a really skilled performer to make that person soulful and real and compelling enough to build a movie around.
I think that mixture also helps sell authenticity to it, and that communal energy that, you know, Dusty helps like slowly get pulled into and really helps guide him. You know, as we're wrapping up, I do want to mention, especially for Josh at this point in your career, you know, you've had the privilege of working with such greats like Spielberg and Luca Guadagnino, but like I also really admire your commitment on the independent film scene, you know, getting to work with people like Kelly Reichardt, with Max here. You know, you mentioned you've seen Max's previous film. What is it about finding that balance? Do you think that's what keeps you very centered as an artist or an individual, or do you find that is where your roots are as a performer? And I'm also sure on Max's side, you know, very happy you commit to that, because then you ended up starring in a film like this.
Well, I actually think that the difference isn't quite as, it's not such a gap as you'd imagine in terms of like, you know, I'm not just a filmmaker, but like a studio movie and a independent style movie. I mean, you know, to take Spielberg, I mean, Steven's still like a kid, you know, it's extraordinary that he's still, you know, so excited to go to the monitor and see what we're doing, and so excited about the scenery and the lighting, and in the same way as Max is. And so, so in that sense, there's no difference. And then from a performing point of view, again, it's like, it's all the same thing. I mean, you're trying to, you approach a character in the same way. You try and understand what they want at any given moment in a scene, but what's their big desire, what are they trying to achieve, and then what are the hurdles in their way. And you approach that in exactly the same way, depending, on each project. How I end up getting to work with all these amazing filmmakers, I don't know, but I think that there is a kind of, what the through line is I've been really fortunate to work with good people. And I think that, Max, Stephen, Joel, Kelly, Alicia Rohrwacher, that they're terrific filmmakers, of course. And that's the draw, as an artist, is you want to make, tell stories with people who have a particular sensibility. But I think there must be a correlation between the fact that I'm drawn to their movies and then they turn out to be these really great people who I like hanging out with, But in terms of the difference, I don't see, maybe the bigger budgets on lights. Really, it's the same. You're doing the same thing. You have the same goals.
Well, I think what you and Max did here is fantastic, and I think Rebuilding is one of the more touching films I've seen this year. I'm very excited for people to come and see it. Josh, Max, thank you so much for your time. This was a lovely discussion.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.